This cooking spray has been reviewed as life-changing for walking vegetables, cooking eggs in any existing way, baking fish. Oh my God, this works better than other fats and has no calories. How have they done it? Well, America truly has been at the forefront of modern cooking technology. The can says it all. No artificial flavors, no artificial preservatives, no artificial colors, and right there in bold, it says 0 calories. 0 grams saturated fat, 0 grams sodium, 0 grams total sugars. All right, well, what exactly is in this can then? Well, according to the ingredients list, we're looking at canola oil, coconut oil, palm oil, oil. How can any cooking oil have 0 calories? Isn't it just pretty much concentrated fat? Well, I have here a bottle of the UK equivalent. They call it rapeseed oil over here. And on the nutrition label, it says 825 calories. Aren't these pretty much the same thing? What exactly is going on? Well, spoilers, America allows food manufacturers to use this cool technique called lying, and another one called deception, which is a shame considering that US nutrition labels are so much better than UK ones in every other conceivable way. Hi, my name is Edinger, and today we're gonna be looking at nutrition labels in the US versus the UK. And before you go thinking you know how this is gonna go and who's gonna come out on top, oh no, I think you're gonna be quite surprised. If you do live in the US, UK, or EU, I can bet after watching this video, you're not gonna be looking at nutrition labels the same way ever again. So before we can find out how this can of calorie-free oil came to be, let's set the stage by finding out how America's nutrition labels came to be. It's the late 1960s, and you're wandering around the grocery aisle in the US looking for nutritional info on, well, anything. Spoiler alert, you won't find much. At the time, labels didn't bother mentioning calories or sodium unless they were for, quote, special dietary uses, typically medical conditions. That kind of made sense back then. Most food was cooked at home and from scratch. Ultra-processed foods were not mainstream, and life was, well, simpler, or at least less labeled. Then came the food processing boom, and people started wondering, what exactly is in the food that I'm eating? By 1969, the White House decided enough was enough, telling the FDA, or Food and Drug Administration, to whip up a system that actually clued Americans in to what was inside their packaged foods.
Did I read the nutrition labels? Yeah, they tell per serving how many calories, how much protein, carbohydrate, and fat. That ought to help us eat better, huh?
Fast forward to 1973, and the FDA takes its first crack at regulations, saying if companies make any nutritional claims, then they've got to list basics like calories, proteins, carbs, and fats. But if there's no claim, you can skip it. If you've seen my video on the secret ingredient ruining ice cream, you'd know it's always a fun time when you let giant corporations voluntarily choose to help or inform the consumer. Yeah, it didn't really work out too well. Either way though, this did mark the beginning of a consumer-focused era of food labeling. As the 1980s rolled around, the link between diet and health became a lot clearer, and consumers pushed for more detailed and standardized labels. This culminated in the 1990 Nutrition Labeling and Education Act, which mandated nutrition facts on most packaged foods, setting the stage for the iconic nutrition facts panel that Americans know and love today.
Bold lines are definitely in.
And that clearly shows in the calories and serving size. This latest piece from the House of FDA says so much.
It's speaking to me.
With standardized serving sizes, referenced daily values, and nutrient lists, the label was designed to empower consumers to make healthier choices, but also created loopholes that savvy manufacturers could exploit, like Conagra, for instance, the manufacturer of Pam Cooking Spray. Time for my initial question here. How exactly does this canola oil-based cooking spray manage to do the job of this rapeseed oil with 0 calories? Well, the truth, it doesn't. It literally is a lie. Legally allowed to be printed on the item and advertised as a 0-calorie spray, in thanks to one of America's most famous pastimes: legal loopholes and corporate interest lobbying.
French toast to fried chicken. With Pam, every dish here helps you watch your weight. Now cutting calories needn't be dull.
Now, I've talked about this on my channel before in my video on how Mars has been lying to American consumers for years about M&Ms, I'll link that above, but the department in charge of all this, that's the reason we have all these loopholes, it's the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration. FDA rules can be confusing to navigate, so websites like the one I'm about to quote from hope to provide food producers guidance about federal regulations that relate to food. And according to a Food Producer's Guide to FDA Regulation, they say you can't make claims that could be misleading in any way. All right, that's pretty good. I'm glad they put that out there. Now let's just scroll down a bit and, oh, here we go. Calorie-free claims. For terms such as calorie-free, no calories, 0 calories, the foods must contain less than 5 calories per typical serving amount. If the food naturally meets this condition without any special processing, then this must be described. For example, cider vinegar a calorie-free food. So provided a serving size of your food product is 4 calories or fewer, you can get away with claiming it has no calories in it, even if your product is one of the most calorie-dense things in your pantry, like oil. I mean, even if a consumer used 4 times the serving size of a food product labeled as 0 calorie, they'd still be having under 25 actual calories, which is pretty small, right? What physical, measurable amount of cooking spray would result in such a small amount of calories? Oh, hello. I've been practicing a lot of piano recently, though I'm still quite a beginner. So the fastest tempo I usually come across is this. 120 beats per minute, which is approximately 2 beats every second. That's pretty fast, right? Well, to better mislead the consumer, Pam Cooking Spray thought, why would we measure the serving in some easily quantifiable volume, like ounces, milliliters, or grams? The spray comes in a can. You know what we can do? We can measure it as a unit of time, not just any time, an unachievably short amount of time. One of these beats here is actually 2 times slower than the actual time. The actual serving size of Pam Cooking Spray is 240 beats per minute, or a quarter of a second. This. Every one of these pings is meant to be a spray, and you're only meant to have 1 spray to have an actual serving size. Anymore, and Pam runs the risk of legally having to tell you that oil contains more than 0 calories. It's impossible. I guess that's why there's 558 servings per can.
It's time for Cooking with Pam.
Start recipes with Pam instead of shortening.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. Let me see if I can time this correctly. 0 calories. Sweet. Incredible. This literally only covers about 1/6 of this 26 centimeter pan. You can't even see it. It's right there. All right, I promise. I sprayed it. Okay, you saw me. It's so funny. 6 times the serving size to cover most of this 26 centimeter pan. And from the many sources that I've read on this matter, the average person sprays their cooking spray for 4 seconds in total, which is 16 times the unrealistic serving size. This would mean the average consumer is actually consuming an extra 80 calories on average every time they use their spray. 8 grams of extra fat per use. And used throughout the week, this type of stuff really does add up. And I know there's already someone jumping into the comments section, looking for an award in the subreddit r/I am very smart, looking to say, hey man, this is all very obvious and clearly the consumer's fault. Nobody honestly thinks that's a calorie-free can of oil. You can't have a free lunch. To which I say, did you know that this spray is life-changing? It works better than other fats, and it has no calories. Kiara told me that herself. Kiara here is your average consumer. We have regulations in place to protect the average consumer who shouldn't have to watch a 20-odd minute YouTube video from a guy who tunneled way too far into nutrition labels to actually understand what she's putting into her body. Here's the thing. You may view yourself as quite literate when it comes to nutrition, but that literacy is a privilege that's not shared by all. The American Journal of Health Behavior found that nutrition label numeracy is particularly low in older individuals of the Black and Hispanic race/ethnicity who are unemployed, born outside the US, have lower English proficiency, lower education achievement, lower income, or just live in the South. I don't fit into any of those categories, but up until a year or 2 ago, I'd say I had very bad nutritional literacy. Like Kiara, I probably would have been impressed with the cooking spray and assumed it was like aspartame versus sugar maybe. Like, that's how they do it? I don't know. I cooked mostly ready meals until I was 27, and I'd start the day with 3 bowls of cereals, and I'd pretty much never have fruit. The difference here is that not only do I love learning, but I have the time and motivation to learn. My whole YouTube channel is essentially me just learning things and then teaching my audience what I've learned, regardless of what the niche is. But the thing is, I have the time to do that. That's my job. If you want to know more about the average consumer's nutritional literacy, just watch any episode of the British show called Secret Eaters. There was this one episode where a guy was like, I'm fat, but I mostly eat fruit, so I don't know what's going on.
I'm getting all of the nutrition I need, and I'm not really eating that much.
And then it was revealed that he starts every day with a bowl of Special K cereal, a chopped banana, and 1,500 calories of double cream instead of milk. For Americans, that's like putting heavy cream on your cereal. This is a guy who was confused as to why he's gaining weight because he doesn't actually know what he's consuming or understand it. Even if someone did want to learn the ins and outs of nutrition and deceptive marketing, with the overwhelming stressors of daily life, they might just not have the time, and you can't blame them for walking into a shop after a stressful day of work and assuming they've not been lied to. That should just be the standard.
Like this 4-ounce potato, under 90 calories. Fried in Pam, it stays under 90 calories.
Oh, you're so savvy. So savvy, you thought you could pull one over on us. No. But with such a damning introduction to American nutrition labels and how misleading they can be, you might be surprised to find out they are still, in many ways, massively superior to the ones that we're subjected to in the UK. You see, for all its faults, the one thing the FDA absolutely nailed down was the formatting. As this was such a huge undertaking and the first mandatory nutrition label in the world, the FDA really wanted its design to pop so consumers would notice it, so they hired prolific graphic designer Berkey Belzer. That is genuinely a great name. Big up Berkey Belzer. Berkey Belzer sounds like a name J.K. Rowling would come up with to a guy that like works in an inn. Oh, that's Berkey Belzer. He's a little miserly guy. Don't trust that wizard. Initial designs were basic. Then they included pie charts and bar graphs with a little rising sun at the top to represent a great image of health, until they did some studies and realized it could also be seen as a setting sun. Not quite as nice. And with such a diverse amount of information to convey, graphs and charts were more confusing than helpful. So they tinkered some more, realizing like I did when making my low-effort YouTube thumbnails that black and white is just the most contrasty and easily readable that text can be. And after a few more iterations, their work was finally complete. Without further ado, let me introduce you to the FDA's greatest work. Ah, wow. Isn't it beautiful? Feast your eyes in all its glory. This here is the FDA's example of a nutrition label for all US food products. This has been crafted so meticulously that even exact fonts and sizes and line depths have been mandated. Starting at the top, nutrition facts. It's gotta be Franklin Gothic heavy or Helvetica black, but flush left and flush right, no smaller than 13 point. I'm talking 3-point rules in between. The serving size, that's gotta be Helvetica regular 8-point with 1 point of leading. We're talking about a big 7-point rule separating things out. A quarter-point rule is in between each of the individual things. We're not bolding things at random here. You gotta bold the total fat, the cholesterol, the sodium, the total carbohydrates, the protein. I'm talking about 8-point Helvetica regular, 4 points of leading, and 10-point bullets for each of the vitamins and minerals. This is beautiful, all right? Appreciate it, especially if you live in the UK, because you don't get this very often. Ours is so fucking bad. This is art, all right? This is fucking perfect. It's beautiful. I would change nothing except one small thing about it, which comes up later in the vid, because this does have one fault. But this is just one example. It could hardly work for everything, for every package, right? Wrong. That's the glory of this design. What if the package doesn't have enough vertical space? Well, bam! How about this one? Does that look good? Yeah. Oh, but what if my package is short and stubby? That's all right, man. A lot of guys might find that relatable. Check the comments. You gotta stick together. Either way, if your package is short and stubby, that's why, bam! All right, they made a long horizontal version. It works. It's formulaic. It's uniform. No matter what style of package you're going to have, you're going to find the same structure, the same organization in an American Nutrition Facts label. Things might be a little bit moved over, but because of the formatting, it's so much easier to read. Okay, well, maybe my package is a tiny tube, smaller than 40 square inches or 258 square centimeters. That's tiny, mate. Ta-da! It's not got all the amazing formatting that the other versions have, but it still has just enough to make it super easy to read and give you all the info you need. It's just beautiful. Some people might think I'm being over the top right now, but I'm being genuine here. This is genuinely a good work of art, all right? Design is art. But where are the ingredients, you say? Well, those are always kept right underneath the nutrition facts, in plain English with the common names and with allergens and such in bold. With American food becoming more and more ultra-processed by the year, the ingredients list is looking more and more like a receipt that you'd get from a CVS pharmacy these days, but at least you can see what's actually in the product. The more food you buy in the USA, the more you get used to this nutrition label and its structure until you take it for granted. Its number one strength is its uniformity. The main weakness here revolves around the looseness in serving size. By allowing companies to set arbitrary and unrealistic serving sizes, the nutrition label and its incredible design loses its ability to allow consumers to adequately compare nutrition facts among products. This jar of peanut butter says it has 190 calories per serving, whereas this one says it has... Listen, this is such a proof of my problem, all right? It's so obvious the numbers are right there all in an order. And this, I can't even read it for the video because I fucking squint and be like, where the fuck is the information? This jar of peanut butter claims to have 190 calories per serving, whereas this one claims to have 92.9. Wow, this one must be so much healthier. The serving sizes are different though. This one here has 2 tablespoons as a serving, or 32 grams, whereas this one, the serving is 15 grams. Your average consumer isn't a freak like me that enjoys doing math at the supermarket. The truth is, the US peanut butter is actually fewer calories than the mini one here, with 32 grams of this one being 198.19 calories. That's 8.19 more than this. Not that that's the end-all be-all of healthiness. I mean, this has got a lot more ingredients in it that I am not aware of. Roasted peanuts, sugar, hydrogenated vegetable oil, whereas the UK brand here, high oleic peanuts and salt. Pretty much just peanuts and salt, and this one is peanuts, sugar, hydrogenated vegetable oil. Listen, it's just better. The sugar is what makes it good, okay? It spreads easier. This stuff separates. I hate it. It doesn't taste good. I know it's better for me. But if I'm having peanut butter, I don't give a fuck. Serving sizes can be incredibly useful for portion control, especially for foods that are calorie dense or meant to be consumed in smaller amounts. For instance, when I first started counting calories and learning more about nutrition, I was pretty pissed off when I measured what a serving size of granola was supposed to be. What? How is this supposed to fill anyone up? It's not. The serving size is how much of your meal should be this item. So if you're thinking that's not enough, well then add more of something else. Add some blueberries, raspberries, maybe some flax seeds to add more fiber, a banana, and sure enough, your small serving size starts to make way more sense. That's the pros of serving size, at least. This is one of my all-time favorite breakfasts, and it absolutely has killer macros. I love it. The package might be full of misleading marketing like low in fat, when sure it's low in fat, it's just packed with sugar instead. Or the heinous made with real cheese. Enhance, zoom, flavor. Ah yes, made with real cheese, flavor. That's exactly what I want. Like this peanut butter, for instance, is trying to brag to you about like, no preservatives, no artificial flavors or colors. Oh, it was asterisk? Similar to all peanut butters. Yeah. This is really what matters, the nutrition facts segment. But the part of the American food product that is dedicated to the nutrition facts label is not meant to have any funny business. Care for a Tic Tac? Oh, don't worry, there's no funny business here. Sure, they're marketed as a sugar-free treat, but if you just trust us, just check the handy-dandy nutrition label. See? It says right there, no sugar. Each Tic Tac contains 0 grams of sugar. Wait, what are you doing? No, don't look at the ingredients. So, you might be wondering how a Tic Tac has 0 grams of sugar, but the first ingredient on the ingredients list is in fact sugar. You see that serving size? 0.49 grams. Wow, how specific and convenient. The FDA allows manufacturers to round down to 0 if their product contains less than 0.5 grams of sugar per serving. And given that a Tic Tac is literally 98% sugar, that 0.49 gram serving, well, that allows the company to sell Americans sugar cubes while telling them that the sugar cubes are in fact just air. I wouldn't even call this misleading as much as straight up lying. Side note, if you're wondering how the UK and EU deal with sugar-free claims, rather than needing to be under 0.5 grams of sugar per serving, they just made it so that you need under 0.5 grams of sugar per 100 grams or 100 milliliters of a product. Now that is sugar-free. It doesn't really make it good though, by the way. It could just be pumped full of aspartame or other sweeteners like this extra gum is, but that causes extra problems we'll chew through in a future video. That pun was not worth it, and I'm sorry. You might have also noticed that the US label has a % daily value on it for each nutrient, like fats, like sodiums, like... Oh, that's weird. It seems to be missing for sugar. How are we supposed to know what percentage our daily intake of sugar should be? That's the fun part. You're not. You see, in 2002, the World Health Organization, along with the Food and Agricultural Organization of the United Nations, published Technical Series 916. Have you heard of it? It stated that no more than 10% of your daily calories should come from sugar, which would be about 50 grams a day. The sugar industry, though, they were not happy about this, and so they got to doing the job they love doing, lobbying. Sweetening up the laws in their favor. The sugar industry didn't just lobby quietly. They went all out. They pressured the US government to withhold funding from the World Health Organization unless they retracted the recommendation. The US even threatened to cut the World Health Organization's funding in half, claiming the 10% guideline introduced by scientists lacked scientific merit. Why? Well, because if consumers knew that they should limit their sugar to 50 grams a day, it might impact profits for Big Sugar and its allies in processed foods. Think about it. A 20-ounce bottle of Mountain Dew, about a half liter, contains 77 grams of sugar, which alone gives a consumer 154% of their daily sugar intake. In the US, that size is usually deemed as a small or a regular, whereas most Americans ordering a large, included in their fast food meal, for instance, would be getting a 32-ounce drink, nearly a liter. That would have 246% of their intake at 123 grams of sugar. So they lobbied, and they lobbied some more. And guess what? Their lobbying worked. The FDA chose not to adopt the 10% recommendation, and to this day, US nutrition labels don't include a percent daily value for total sugar. We did it!
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
Boo! Yeah! Instead, they only provide one for added sugars, a relatively recent addition to labels, which uses the same 10% threshold, but that's just for added sugars, not naturally occurring ones, which can mislead consumers into thinking drinking orange juice regularly is a good thing, for instance. Hey, they didn't add any sugar to the drink, they just removed the healthiest parts of the fruit and reduced it to its liquid form. A 20-ounce or near half-liter bottle of OJ is about 52 grams of sugar, compared to the 12 grams you'd get in a single orange, and all without the benefits of the fiber and the slow release of natural sugars that keep you feeling fuller longer. Instead, you're left with a sugar bomb that your body processes just like soda. But the sugar industry managed to make more money, so there are pros and cons to this law. Now, if you haven't seen the news, the US FDA has just proposed a couple weeks back that nutrition information be placed on the front of packaged foods to provide at-a-glance information about saturated fat, sodium, and added sugar. This kind of sounds like a US version of the UK system that's coming up later in the video. But you might have missed this, because this news might have been in your blind spot, as it wasn't reported on as widely across the political spectrum. That's why you should use today's video sponsor, Ground News. With Ground News, you can see for this topic, left and center sources reported on this a lot, whereas many on the right didn't at all. You can also, at a glance, see that this publication is owned by the Murdoch family, whereas this one is more independent. This can help you have a better understanding of the inherent bias in the news that we consume, as much as like the food we consume. Plus, the more you use Ground News, the more it can help you find any blind spots in your reading habits by recommending you articles that you might have missed. So if you go to ground.news/Evan or click my link in the description, doobly-doo, you could check out Ground News today, and if you subscribe through my link, you can get a big discount off the same unlimited access Vantage plan that I use to get the most out of the news. And hey, subscribing helps support an independent news platform and helps you stay more well-rounded, so it's a win-win. And so big thanks to Ground News for sponsoring. Let's get back into it. Let's hop across the pond to see if the UK and EU have a better solution, or if they've simply got their own unique pitfalls. You see, one of the toughest parts about adjusting to life in the UK for me was trying to understand its food. And no, I'm not talking about the stereotype of a British food bland or British food different. I'm talking about the labels. That didn't mean in any way the UK system was inferior. Maybe it was just a new thing I had to learn. You know, it was different. Well, let's look at the UK laws on labeling of food and see maybe if we can make heads or tails of it. Right off the bat, UK law is way more flexible with labels than the US's exact font and line size rules. Just make sure it's easy to see. Don't hide stuff. All right, I did find this one rule stating that the numbers must be aligned. So, I mean, that's a start. A start. We've seen this style of UK law before. You know, they're a bit more trusting of companies to do the right thing, which might be because the system of government in the UK and the EU especially make it a bit harder to lobby, but this also means a less uniform and effective nutrition label. Look at this example of a UK food label for bread. Nothing's really jumping out, is it? It's basically a spreadsheet. It's ugly, okay? Let's be honest with ourselves, it's awful. I have to look at this every day, okay? Now you have to see it as well. That being said, the UK does stipulate one thing that absolutely fixes the one problem with the US system. Look over there in the middle. 100 grams contains. Like many of my favorite UK laws, this one comes from EU regulation. Thank EU! Nutrition labels must show the calories, fats, sugars, and such in relation to either 100 grams of the product or 100 milliliters. And they even made this handy flowchart to explain things. Wow, that's hot. Look at this! This is some good effort! Yeah! This is hot, and that's a nutritional fact, all right? Ting. No matter what your food product is, no matter what bullshit serving size you choose, you pretty much always need to convey everything per 100 grams. But you can also choose to show things per serving size, but that's on top of the one that actually makes sense when consumers are comparing things. But the UK system does have a significant problem. The labels are an absolute mess. There's no uniformity of visibility, and oftentimes I'll find myself spinning packages around multiple times.
On the left-hand side.
Where?
There, under your fingers. No, back. Stop.
Typical per 100 grams. Yeah, sure, but how many grams is this? I've looked all over the package.
It appears like this is done deliberately to confuse the consumer. The UK's laws in this regard are actually more beneficial to the corporations. that is very interesting to see the shoe on the other foot for once. But another great feature of the UK/EU labels is one of a voluntary nature that helps to make things a bit more understandable. Could be better, but it's good. The Food Standards Authority are really trying to push the traffic light system on the front of packages. Sure, the UK usually chooses a roundabout 9 times out of 10, as maybe they just like the act of going in circles, but the traffic light system is a welcome addition. Essentially, they break down all the most important parts of your standard label and place it on the front in a color-coordinated way, like a stoplight. Is the number in green? Well, it has a low amount and is deemed as healthier. Is it yellow or amber? Well, it's not high nor low. You'll be fine. Don't overdo it. Or is the number in red? Well, you shouldn't have too many items in your day with lots of red percentages, as that will easily push you over the daily recommended limits. That is an easy to understand system. For those looking for this specific information, I'm sure the quick glance at the colors can prove helpful, but that leaves the rest of us looking for, basic macros, I'm talking protein and carbs, to continue this dreadful time-consuming dance of spinning around the package. It's so close to being good, but it's not. I just want you to know how much time I waste every day at the grocery store, spinning packages around, desperate. Let me show you a few packages to illustrate my point. Normally in the US, you would expect the nutrition label to be on this side or this side. This one is really nice. In fact, it has the calories in bold, the fat in bold, carbs in bold, proteins in bold. This is what I'd like. This is a US box of Kraft dinner, Kraft mac and cheese. As you can see, we've got the nutrition label, super sexy, right on the side. You know exactly what you're looking for. Next, what we've got here is a UK jar of speculoos, of Biscoff. So this one shoves it all in the side right here. Everything is bold. Why? Chocolate marshmallow flavored s'mores Starbucks drink. Oh yeah, part of your 5 a day. We've got a tiny little box with nutrition information per 100 milliliters here. This isn't useful. This is so annoying. Also, it's per 100 milliliters, which is useful, yes, for comparison, but this is a 250 milliliter bottle. So that means that people like me who want to actually know what is in this bottle have to do a 2.5 times multiplier to 62 and be like, oh, that's about what, 156 or something like that, 155, I don't know. Oh God. See, this one also has other languages. There's French in there. We got proteins and proteinies. We got energy, but let me then show you the worst. On the healthy end, I bought some juniper and black pepper beetroot. That sounds quite nice, right? Let's look at the, awful. It's all squeezed together in a paragraph. I do appreciate the bold. They could have made it worse, sure. But this is, no. So this one does provide you with the UK's little stoplight thing. We got a yellow, 2 greens, and a neutral, energy. All right, we'll take it. Now let's look on the back, and this is what we have to deal with every day, okay? Yet again, thankful for the bolding, but there's so many other things bolded. So I'm looking for protein. I see how to store. I don't give a fuck. It's all just a line of text. If I wanted to read the Torah, I would go to the synagogue. Instead, I get to read this. I'm being serious. This is genuinely infuriating. You try and tell me what's better, all right? This is just so much better, shaka. So while the UK and EU's addition of the 100 gram/milliliter section does allow the consumer to make a much more informed opinion when comparing products, the otherwise poorly designed and non-uniform label makes the time it takes to find said information overwhelmingly higher and thus more frustrating. The ideal nutrition label, in my opinion, is the US one with the loopholes removed and the mandatory 100 gram section taken from the UK's labels. Maybe then Americans might have a better grasp on the metric system, like as discussed in my video on the old Johnny Harris situation there. But maybe we could throw the old stoplight system on the front of the package too, with the addition of some neutral colors for carbs and proteins. Just a thought, if, the FDA doesn't get dismantled by the current US government. So there's so many reasons I'm thankful to live in the UK, all right? We got some problems, but I still wish we had the nutrition label though. Until then though, what can you do as a consumer? Well, 1, always stay critical and ask questions. You should know that any claims on the packaging outside of the nutrition facts label are marketing and should be viewed as such. 2, when it comes to the nutrition facts label, if there are a lot of ingredients in the list that you've never heard of and you wouldn't find in your pantry, the item is probably classed as an ultra-processed food, so it might be worth giving a miss anyway. As we discussed in my video on the illusion of choice in supermarkets seen here, ultra-processed foods are currently 60 to 80% of American and Canadian caloric intake, and in Britain, it's still pretty bad at 55%. Many ultra-processed foods can be considered addictive, and a diet high in ultra-processed foods, or UPFs, is usually linked to negative health outcomes. And 3, this will come up in my future video on nutrition, but the way I was able to better understand nutrition and what was going into my body was by using a tracking app. Even just using it for a day or two will really open your eyes into what's actually inside the food you're consuming. However, asterisk, if you've struggled with disordered eating or anything related, tracking may not be the best approach. And so this isn't something I can just be like, everybody do it. But for me, it's been really good. And if you are someone that so far is like, I think this should be fine, go for it. If not, talk to a doctor. Fun fact, if you haven't been able to tell by the shape of my face, I've actually lost over 20 kilograms in the past year. That's 45 pounds. And the overwhelming majority of that came from learning and understanding proper nutrition, not necessarily from exercising more. Getting an e-bike did contribute to me losing an extra 2.2 kilograms alone, even though some people want to call that cheating. Either way, I'm currently working on a video on everything I've learned, so stay tuned for that. This was just meant to be a small taste. Pun intended. I thought maybe it'd be useful to make a cooking video showing a few of the recipes that I've been using to better fuel myself and the tools that help me along the way. I've made only like a few cooking videos in the past and they don't always do well, so I'm hoping to spend some time with this one and hopefully you'll find it interesting and have learned something from it. So stay tuned for that in the future. In the meantime, if you haven't seen my big deep dive into ice cream and the secret ingredient that's been ruining it, you can click that to watch that above. Either way, thanks for watching and I'll see you there.